welcome everybody to this is the Animation Educators Forum. And the Animation Educators Forum was formed in 2007 because basically, we always thought it was interesting that when industry people like, in animation all get together, a bunch of folks, whatever, over a beer or something, they talk shop. Just like, like when you get a bunch of film workers or writers together, they talk shop. And I thought, animation educators don't talk to one another. Everybody's just sort of just doing their own little thing, but we're all teaching the same thing, and we're all sort of basically approaching it from the same way. So wouldn't it be interesting just to kind of compare notes, because a lot of us are having the same problems. So the idea of today's event is really a little more loose, like a conversation. So it's not really a lecture. It's more like a Howard Stern sort of thing. We're just going to get everybody together and just talk about our mutual experiences. And we have a couple of great guests and all. I'm just going to I have to read some copy that I was told before we start. This is the AEF Salon is a quarterly series of informal Zoom lectures and discussions in which a scholar, practitioner, or educator shares their current research projects and pedagogies. Or pedagogies. Speakers range from past AEF faculty grant award recipients to industry professionals with topics that cover the rich and diverse terrain of animation practices and perspectives. Our last salon features professors Dr. Christopher Holliday of King's College London and Dr. Alexander Sargent, University of Westminster, discussing their fantasy animation website project. The next salon will take place on January 12th, 2025, with the 2021 Faculty Grant Award and awardee in arts of the University of Bournemouth, Professor Paul Taberham, discussing his new book, Animated Visions, Theory, History, and Aesthetics. So that's the official product. And of course, all of this is all, there's no charge for anything. There's no fee. There's no, subscription or something like that. We're all just members. And anybody can join and get involved. And if you want to get involved, we could use the help. So this is all volunteer work. So anyway, what we want to start, basically, the purpose of this, and also the purpose of today's event is basically to talk about, like we were saying, about navigating navigating dark waters, and the idea is that students are so much attuned now to industry gossip. And, it's been a perfect storm this last year. There's been a lot of downturn. There's been a lot of, you hear a lot about layoffs, and you hear a lot about slowdowns in the industry. And we were mentioning before about how when, 30 years ago, when you wanted to read something about the business, you needed to, find a copy of Variety or find a copy of Animation Magazine. Now there's so much information, and students are reading all this stuff, and are getting depressed before they even begin their business. They haven't even started to look for something yet, and they're already defeated. So how do we inspire, and how do we get people excited about the industry and all when they feel like it's all like, everything's going to hell? Every time somebody makes a new breakthrough about AI, they say, oh, it's going to wipe everybody out. That's it. You're all gone. Like we're all unemployed. To hell with it. Just take your own life now, and it's kind of ridiculous, So just trying to sort of like, I just wanted to sound out like everybody else is sort of like, what are they thinking about, or what are they going through as this is happening? So you could raise your hand to be recognized. I have three guests that we brought that have graciously, decided to come in and help us out. And I'm going to introduce each one of them in turn. So our guests over here. Let me find my copy. So my co-host for tonight is Kathy Baur, who's assistant professor at Cal State Fullerton. And of guests, we have Tamara Lusher, who's a story artist at Disney on Moana 2, and a former student of mine. Hey. Carol Wyatt, who's color supervisor on Rick and Morty, and an instructor at Cal State University, Long Beach. And Carol used to work on The Simpsons too, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay, good, good.
Oh, I
All
just
right.
disappeared.
Wow. Okay.
I know. What a question.
I know it's a yeah, yeah, I know. I had a student.
It was the 80s all over again.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I had a student in the 1990s who wanted to work on The Simpsons really bad, and that's all he wanted to do. And I was like, it was Brad Abelson, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, Brad, what happens when The Simpsons is over? I got to do something else. It's like 34 years later.
Yeah,
Oh my
season,
God.
68.
Yeah. That's where Todd and I met. Todd Jacobson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And let me also throw in Mark Pudleiner. And Mark is teaching as instructor up at the Vancouver Film School. And Mark and I worked together at Disney and a whole bunch of other places and everything. Mark, were you at DreamWorks?
I was, yeah, on Trek 2.
That's
And
right.
I just started Madagascar, but then Disney called me back, and there was something going on. And anyway, so basically, yeah, Bill Damaski, he's like, yeah, you can head back. I had that contract, but
Yeah,
anyways, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I remember when Bill Damaski was Xeroxing model sheets for me, and
That's what I was told. He was a young guy at one time, eh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now he's like a senior, president or something like that. So
We're all still young though. He got old.
that's right. That's right. I'm still young. That's right. Okay, so anyway, let me start off with our guests first. Anyway, and if you'd like to ask a question and all, we could use the chat, or you could raise your hand to be recognized. When you do, when you do begin talking, please identify yourself and say what institution of education you're associated with, because it's interesting to hear where everybody is. Because looking around, we have listen, people are tuning in from Germany, from Mexico, from Australia, from Canada, from all over the East Coast U.S. So we have a pretty good international group here right now. Okay, so let me start with Tamara. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Could you tell us about your own personal journey from student to professional?
It's so, thank you for inviting me, and it's lovely to see names pop up, like Frank and Angela. I was in Frank Gladstone's first internship at Disney in Florida. So yeah, it's like my dad. Oh my God. So I love
Thanks,
him.
Tamara. You can't use the car tonight.
I started, I'm from Ohio. I went to the Columbus College of Art and Design. I was recruited in 1990 to Frank's internship. I was part of his first internship. And from there, I worked at Disney on Beauty and the Beast. I posed for Belle. And when she says, "I love you," it was me on an office chair saying, "I love you." I was on the Belle unit. I worked with Mark and then I worked with Mark again on Jasmine. And then I worked with on the Hyenas for The Lion King. And then I was recruited to go to the story program that they had just started in LA. They're actually in Glendale, still at the warehouses. That's where I met Tom. And was part of that story internship under Vance Gary. And I worked with Joe Grant, and I worked with a whole bunch of wonderful people. Hercules was my first project as a story artist. Worked on Megara, and I did the Go the Distance song. I recorded that. So I went between Viz Dev and story through a whole lot of it. And then I took time away. I had 2 kids. And I was just saying, as we got started here, that they're now in that place. They've just graduated from film schools, SF State and Cinema and Ringling in computer animation. So I have this sense of like where these kids are, and I feel it as, you know, from the professional place, but also as a parent. And so I have great empathy for them. And it just to put this out here, I feel like it is about self-esteem, you know, making sure that they feel strong as people and that they're able to separate that from their work ethic that they need to have to do well in the industry. And so, yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I've returned to Disney and worked on Moana 2, and I recently was in England working on a hybrid live action project. And yeah, and now I'm developing my own film. So wish me luck.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Carol, do you want to join in and tell us about your own path to professionalism?
It's a long one. Sure. I actually didn't start out in animation. I went to Otis Parsons in the 80s, out here in Los Angeles, and I did a semester in New York as well. But I was going into advertising. My goal was to be an executive or an advertising art director, you know, Mad Men style, and run things and make beautiful album covers and that kind of stuff. And I ended up liking illustration more, so I switched my major when I was at Otis Parsons. Everett Peck was in charge of the department then, so it was a great department. We had incredible teachers. And I knew nothing about animation, but I loved it, and I always loved film. And after I graduated and I was working in illustration, doing editorial and advertising, a friend called me and said, "Hey, you want to paint cells at Deke on this, you know, after school special?" Like it was Real Ghostbusters or one of those cops, one of those shows. And I said, "Sure." And I loved it, and I had a blast, and I fit right in with everyone there. And that was kind of the beginning. And then I was good at it, I guess. I knew nothing about animation, and word of mouth just kind of sent me around, and I started working on commercials and then music videos and then shorts and then pilots. And then I ended up at Klasky Csupo, working on the first 4 seasons of The Simpsons. And it's the same kind of thing. I didn't know I was good at this. I wasn't aware of it, but they put me in charge of the color department. I was also a background designer and layout artist, and I worked on many things over at Klasky Csupo. But that kind of set me on my path. Was you know, Gabor kind of put me on literally everything that came into the studio. So when they started Edith Ann, I worked on that. I art directed, and just everything that came in, and I worked on title designs. And that just led to a long career in mostly television animation and mostly BG Paint, color, art direction, viz dev development. I developed Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and did the artwork for that. I worked on Rocco's Modern Life, and then did a lot of design for Camp Lazlo. And then, you know, I've done a lot of different TV shows and worked on a few features. And now I'm on Rick and Morty on the 8th season. We're wrapping the 8th season.
Okay. Now you mentioned early on before too that you're originally from Louisville, Kentucky. So what brought you to Hollywood, to Los Angeles?
Well, I really loved Otis. I wanted to go there. Yeah, I visited a bunch of schools. I actually visited the one in Ohio as well. And yeah, and there were a few schools. I visited Parsons, but I landed in Los Angeles and saw the palm trees, and I was like, this is where I want to be. I love this. And my dad was like, let's go visit the school first, Carol. And like, I love it. So I stayed.
Great. Okay. Let's go to Mark. Mark, do you want to talk about your background?
Yeah, just I guess it started with the love of comic art, you know, Mad Magazine, young kid, before the internet, and just being influenced by the humor and how to tell stories, you know. So growing up trying to do graphic novels, and they didn't have a comic art course at Sheridan College. They stopped it. So the next thing was animation. So I went there and you know, got hooked into the animation side of things. My dad, when I was a kid, came home one day with a Pentel set of pens, which you'd put the ink pens, and I would redraw all my comic art. And if I made a mistake, I would have to start all over again. So I learned really fast to be very picky with my line work. And he was a sign person, so I saw him doing the same. So anyways, fast forward, I got a job at Bluth, Nelvana on, I think, John, you were there, the Ewoks and Droids TV series way back when, and then got to Bluth, and Vera Lampard had a cleanup, saw my work, and asked me to join them on American Tail, and then she was leaving for London. We moved to Ireland, and she asked me to she mentored me to take over the cleanup department, which was pretty exciting for me, being I think 24 of a crew of 50 something cleanup artists. So but it was all about being picky, being able to communicate, and then for me, I didn't want to be the boss in a way of, I was doing a lot of talking, like what I do now. And I wanted to be push myself as an artist. I asked to go back to animation, which I did. Ended up at Disney over the years, and worked with amazing supervisors, from Mark Hen to Tony Fucelli, to Nick Ranieri, to Ken Duncan, to all these people. Super fortunate to just arrive at the right time for that. And I just got to say, a huge part of this career, even to this day, today, is my friends in college. The bond that they are, like, as far as my life and just the connections we have, it's amazing how strong that is. And I tell the students day one, you may have friends for life here. And it's all about the arts. And what a great career, what a great life to be focused on the arts for the rest of your life. So anyways, there's a joy of that. And so yeah, that's sort of my career. And so now I've gotten into teaching. I was doing animation mentor for around 5 or 7 years. They asked me when they first started, and I went full-time teaching up here. I moved back home where I'm from, in Vancouver, in 2010. So full-time now. And redid the course. It's a 1-year course. It's not a lot, but we're trying our best to make it a really good course that they're proud of in 1 year. So
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yep.
So now, really, this what I wanted to throw out to our guests first was that we have there's so much chatter online and stuff, and there's so many opinions being thrown around and people texting about the state of the industry and where it is and all. And I just want to see from your perspective, what do you think the state of the industry is right now? And because we're hearing about layoffs and stuff, but actually, animated features have been doing very well. This past summer, I think was it one website noticed that of the top 10 movies of the year, like 5 of them are animated. Like Inside Out 2, and the Shrek film, and a whole bunch of these things are doing, the Last Despicable Me, and also how do you see the industry right now without a lot of like hyperbole?
well, I'll just say really quick that when the studios, like say Disney or whatever, they'll lay off way too many people.
Yeah.
And everyone panics, and then they go, okay, we got to start hiring people back. I feel that's what's happening with AI right now. Everyone's going, there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of holding off. And I think now, from what I get, and when I see LinkedIn, and even from connections talking, people are starting to get hired again. So I think we went through the first initial fear of like, this is doom and gloom. And then the reality is there's so much work out there that they, like, all the avenues for producing work. We got to remember that. It's like, I mean, Tom, how many jobs were there back when we were in college, right? None.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, think of how many avenues there are now. So it's actually really positive. It's just that it went down into a bump because of the reality of the AI, and all the writer strike, and all that stuff, the actors. So, but I do think that is not as negative as what all the articles say. I think there's it's going to start getting busy again, but there's no doubt we have so many students now. There's so many schools, and there's only so many jobs. So I do think the stronger students, or the people with experience, it's just a numbers game at this point, right? So it's sort of this complicated mix, but I think I don't think it's as doom and gloom as everyone, the articles read.
Yeah. One of the things I tell my students is I said when I first moved to Los Angeles permanently around 1978 and then permanently 82, all the studios that were powers, that were like the big guns, and all was Hanna-Barbera, the Patty Frailing, Ruby Spears, Filmation, Film Fair. They're all dead. They're all gone. Like they're just like a name in a trivia book. But we're all here. We're all working, and there was new studios. It's like 15 years ago, Amazon sold used books through the mail, and Netflix sold DVDs, and now there's studios, so it's like empires fall, empires rise. Well, Carol, from Klasky Schupo, like
Yeah.
Klasky was very big, and now
But
they're
it wasn't at the time. At the time, it was brand new. And even The Simpsons was on Fox, and Fox wasn't in every state at that time. It was a cable channel. So everything changes. But what I was going to say, when he's talking about so many students, and there are so many students now, but I also, we've all seen this. We've been through these slumps before. Like I've been through 2 of these already. And what I see is more people start new studios when this happens, because the big guys like Disney and DreamWorks and the people we work for, they freak out and they lay everyone off and they hire new people, and they kind of scramble and don't know how to handle these big changes. But then there are a lot of young, talented people who have the nerve and the ambition to start their own studios, or even find other ways to do things so that new things happen. So I feel like that's because I was at Games Animation, which is now Nickelodeon. I was at, MTV, which is, all of these tiny little places became bigger places, and then new places sprout up, as those become bigger. So I think it's just this kind of cyclical thing that happens. And the more people that graduate and go into this business, the more people are going to start studios. I think it's just, there will just be more of them. and there's so much content, and I know people hate that word, but there is so much content needed for television and movies.
Yeah. Tamara, you want to join in?
Yeah, my experience recently, I would say in the past like 3 or 4 years, has been how global animation has become. It's not just about Los Angeles's industry, which has been where I've been most of the time. But I've seen how big it is, and even developing countries, starting to have their own voices come out. So I feel actually quite positive about things going in a way that more voices are being heard, and it isn't quite such a small thing. And so I also feel like we as artists thrive when things are hard. It's just been my experience that I personally need a deadline, and I'm doing the work sometimes, towards that, and it's not easy. And it's like that oyster pearl thing, you kind of need that grain of sand. You need that AI sphere, to get the stuff done. And so it's never been easy. I've never found, animation just this cakewalk, and when I was in school, it was difficult. It was challenging and competitive. And when I went to Disney, it was challenging and competitive. And I love that. I learned to thrive in that kind of in time, and I feel like students, and I've taught too, and I have found that by being kind of, like, let's learn this, you need to learn this. This is something that's, it's going to help you to know what your weaknesses are and what to work on. This is not your persona. This is not anything like that. It's separate. This is your work that you're going to take forward, and it's your mission. It's what you love. It's what you loved as a child. It's what brought you to art school. So that would be my take on it right now. The industry is just expanding, and there's growing pains to that. Yeah.
It's interesting that somebody was mentioning before about has there been downturns like this before and all, and there's been a lot. I mean I'm coming up on 50 years now, and I've seen several downturns. When I first came to LA in '82, there was a strike and there was a recession, and I was out of work for like 8 months until I fell into filmation to do the He-Man show, and the older artists around me said, "Ah, this is nothing. 1958, 58 was bad." Because it's like Sleeping Beauty laid off, and like Disney went from like 400 to like 100, in one shot, and MGM had just closed, laid off Hanna-Barbera, and there was a recession at that time, so a lot of people remembered that one. And then in 2003, 2001 to 2003, there was a big layoff of traditional artists because I remember in that same time, like when we were working in the '80s, and everybody was saying computers are coming, computers are coming. They're going to lay us off. We're all going to be gone. We're all going to be out of work. Then a few years later, it was VI's coming, VI's coming. It's like we're all going to be out of work. So Kathy, do you want to pipe in?
Sure, yeah, just I'm gonna put a link in the chat. This was Joanna Romersa, who was interviewed by Steve Hewlett. I'm just gonna put the link in the chat because it echoes what Tamara brought up and what you're mentioning, Tom, about the cycle. She was interviewed, I think, several years ago, and she refers to, I believe, the 1980s and gives advice to students in which she states that she was so concerned that students were concerned that work was being shipped away and there weren't going to be jobs for people going into animation. And this was a long time ago, like the 80s. So this is kind of cyclical. So I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat, and I'll also put the time marker. So it's just the same discussion that we've had before in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And Joanna was a mainstay at Hanna-Barbera for a very long time. They had an amazing career. So let me get Mark. Mark, you want to join in?
Well, yeah, the one thing, because I know there's a lot of focus on the industry, the career, of course, like as students, that's a concern. But I will tell parents that can you guarantee my kid, because they're spending $30,000 to $40,000, let's say, on that they can get a job, and I'm like, we can't, because it's like the ocean up and down the industry, but we can guarantee we're going to give them the best education for their portfolio, so by the end they're proud of it. So I like to focus on that. I don't know what the industry is going to be like, and I tell them nothing is gained by being stressed out. They're not going to hire you because your portfolio is pretty good, but you stress out a lot. It's like there's nothing gained by that. So I just go, for me, it's the quality of the education and what they're there for is they have a passion for animation, as we know, or they're learning how difficult it is. It's not easy. And they're jumping on that, that focus that they need to learn and to respect, from the history to the ongoing, to be that actor or to learn how to paint those backgrounds or whatever it is. So is focusing on this in their time with us about learning the art, and then, they go forward. And if they can just focus on the art, that's going to be their best avenue to present themselves out there in the industry. So it's a little trying to get them to stop being so stressed out when they just started and actually enjoy the process of us helping them learn this craft. Like it's such a great art form of teaching it and trying to get them to not get distracted so much. They get so distracted with so much out there. So to me, that's our job is to encourage that passion that they have and how to make the right decisions so they don't waste their time, get off their phones, like set up, allow those breaks when they can get on their phones. But let's learn to be that artist again when you shut things down and you just focus. And it's the joy of those little details and the successes throughout the year. And, like So again, it's one of those things. I get the stress of jobs and industries, but as a student learning animation, trying to get them to still enjoy that path of learning how to be an artist, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I want to get to the I want to get to the elephant in the room lately too, which is the whole AI issue, because there's so much speculation. I mean, so many people are basically reading into stuff, kind of like the way they were saying in the 80s about computer animation. Everybody was saying computers are coming and going to put us out of work, and part of the argument was at that time in the 80s, because I wrote a book on computer graphics. Was that in the 80s that they said when CGI comes in, it'll require less people and it'll be cheaper than traditional. So I don't know if you've ever seen an animated movie lately, but when the credits come up, these Roman legions of names go by. It's like so much, 101 Dalmatians has like, 12 names on it or something. This thing just keeps going by. So there's the people. And then I think the budget of Little Mermaid was 88 million and the budget of Elemental was 250 million. So it's like it's not quite the same, but right now there's all this apprehension and AI is out there. I mean, last year I had I was teaching storyboard and I know students are already playing with AI. They're already downloading it and stuff and doing stuff. Like I had one student, I gave him an assignment, a scene to plan out, and he turned in all these beautiful panels. And what he did was that he worked out the initial shots, the initial cuts and how the narrative would go. And then he told the AI, render this in the style of NC Wyatt nighttime. And it did it, and it's like, but he did pick the shots, that's the important part, so he did make that decision, and that's really what storyboard is. The rest is rendering, so I didn't penalize him or anything, because he shows interesting initiative. But I just wanted to throw out to the three of you, like, what do you think about the whole AI thing, and should we all start applying for jobs in the post office? So
No. No, it's like what you're saying when we were changing over to computers, and I was lucky because on The Simpsons, because I ran the color department, we did start with Little Max in the color department in the 80s. So that I already was a little familiar, but it was scary because people didn't know if they could transition and that kind of thing. But I think that is the biggest fear, is can we transition? What people forget, I think, and this is what I talk about with my students, we're all learning it at the same time. No one else knows, has this formula that none of us know, and they're going to trick us. It's like we're all learning at exactly the same time, just like we learned computers at the same time. And I remember when we first started using computers, and Illustrator and Flash, and it was a mess. And we did great work, and we figured it out, and we invented it as we went along. And I kind of feel like I'm not a fan of AI, I'll be honest, because I'm an illustrator as well and a fine artist. And it really bothers me that's people are just stealing people's work. But that's a whole separate thing than when you're doing in-betweens and animation. For that, if it's being used as a tool, great. But it is troublesome that people are okay with stealing styles and stealing copywritten work and selling it as their own. So that's a problem for me, and there are laws in place for that. But in terms of learning technology and new technology and things that are going to change our lives forever, we just have to go with the flow, I feel like, and learn it as we go. And I do kind of root for humans. I think we're going to win. I think humans will win this game. I don't think we're going to lose it, because we're still here. So I think we're going to be okay. It's just kind of scary because we don't know it. The unknown.
Yeah. Tam, you want to get in there?
And well, I don't know that much about AI. I don't think any of us really fully know. I know it's very difficult you can get one really great image from it, but it's hard to then tell it to change, like to do any iteration. It really struggles with that. I do think it's interesting how it might be trained on a IP that doesn't use any other copywritten, materials. It's just being trained on its own thing. And I think they're starting to explore that. I think Autodesk is looking into that, trying to figure out new ways of approaching AI. I think the way it's been approached has been just very like low level kind of, stuff just to get it out there, but it's, stealing. And so that's not cool. But I think we all are realizing that, I did something with some graphics the other day where I needed some lettering done, and I put it into an AI thing and it just came out beautiful. And I'm like, this is great. Thank you, AI, and I feel like so there's a time and a place for everything, and that's, a tool that we can use if it's done in an ethical way and people are given compensation if their likenesses are used and all of those things, their voices need to be, their own. And but I feel like the future is exciting because AI can be used for scientific discoveries, things beyond what we can do. But I think the human voice, like Carol was saying, is that much more exciting and important and unique now, because we can kind of assess when something out is from AI. You can read something and you're like, okay, that doesn't feel human. And you can see images and you also can suss it out. So being human becomes even more distinctive, and that's what I would say for teaching students is to like find your voice, what is funny to you, what moves you, what's an emotional driven thing for you, and put that in your work and it will make you invaluable, and no computer can beat that.
Yeah. Mark, you want to get in it?
Yeah, it's an interesting subject, right? I do think we have to welcome it. I don't think it's going anywhere, and I think we have to use it. And I think there will be studios. It's sort of the different, like at Disney, they have the television division, they had the video straight, and they had the feature. And I do think that you get a show, say like The Simpsons, it can be storyboarded with AI. It's like two heads talking, like there's a certain style of filmmaking, and it's the writing, and it's the humor, and it's all that, and I think that also gives opportunity to people to develop independent people with AI. But I agree with you, Tamara and Carol, like no stealing and all that stuff and all that. Yes, so it's this complicated area, but I'm going to quote Charlie Bonifacio from Skull Rock, the podcast and I think I mentioned with you, Tom. Charlie was quoting with regarding AI is that we got to remember that for feature, it's about we're actors, and if we end up just having the same AI, life, sort of actors being portrayed all the time, like Brad Pitt's acting or whatever. I think that people don't want that. I think they want to have authentic, genuine human acting. And I got to, so that does come into a play of why when we're doing feature animation, when we're doing this performances. So if it's all just mixed in and it's all like Glenn Keane's performance with James Baxter's mixed together, our youngest is in high school and their crowd they don't like AI. So it's interesting that AI is sort of like, they don't like it because it waters down whatever the subject is. It's like cheating. It's not authentic. And so I do believe, like I think Carol said, I think humans will win. I think people want, when it comes to performance and acting, there's always going to want that human connection. If you're going to make, yes, you can make me cry with a computerized performance if it's done well, but knowing that it's computer or human emotions, and that's what we're doing here, right? Where like it's all about the entertaining and the connection with the audience and the human element for animation. We got to remember that, I think. And so I think that's it's going to be used for some series work, more limited in style, but just as popular. But for the feature stuff, I think it has to be the actors that come to the table for that unique performances. Maybe not all the time, but I think that's always going to be in demand. And I remember Andres Deja, where he's outside my room, I think it was on Fantasia 2000. He gave me that drawing behind me, and he was talking about it's our responsibility to bring to the table a unique performance all the time. We don't want to just do the same performance all the time. We're not Scooby-Doo doing the same acting, like, hey, Scooby, like this is feature. And so we're being cast as actors. So I think there's different levels or different avenues for AI to be used and not to be used.
Okay, great. So before we go, oh, Kathy, you have something?
Yeah, I'm just going to put in the chat also Tech Threat, the film by Croyer Films, because again, these are issues that have come up before. So yeah, just sharing that with everyone. Thanks.
It's technological threat.
Yeah, technological threat. Yep, that's it.
That's a fun one. Yeah. So, okay. Another question I want to throw out to our guests is just right now, what would your advice be to young people just starting out, like the class of 2024? What would you tell them? Carol, you want to start?
Sure. I do have a senior class.
Good.
Yeah, we actually, what was just said before is exactly what I tell them, is to find their own voice. It's the only thing that, even if we didn't have AI or any, changes coming up, in order to compete with this many people that are this talented, I mean, the amount of talent out there is unbelievable. The people I look for when I'm looking at portfolios is I look for people with a voice. I look for people who can communicate emotion, because emotion is everything in the storytelling process, just like what was just said. We want to see emotion. We want to know the story. And then something unique that's a little bit different. There's a lot of students who like to mimic, and I'm mostly involved with stylistic, with painting and, setting, environments and viz dev. And what I'm always telling them is don't imitate other artists. Like, it's fine to be inspired by people, but a lot of artists like to imitate and copy other artists and get really good at that style. And that's fine on your own, but it's not going to get you a job, because someone needs to know what you do and what you're going to do when you're handed something new and different. So I just constantly tell them to do what is inside of them, to find out what inspired them growing up and going into a professional world, and use that, because that's going to help with their competitive edge.
Mm-hmm. Tamara, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So advice to the class of 24 would be put up a great website. I'm going to be really like, you have to do some specific things, to actually get yourself seen. And that is, going to places like Lightbox, and setting up interviews and trying to, introduce yourself, make business cards. Moo is a great one to use, I think. Make sure that your resume is super solid and not, talking about things that you did in high school or something. Really bring it up to the point where you are now. And yeah, and LinkedIn is the thing, like everybody uses it in the industry, but the kids actually don't know that. They don't know. They don't want to know. And I think you have to, just as professionals, make sure that they are acting that way and you know, presenting themselves that way, and all their social media stuff is to be seen, you know, out there and will be Googled. And so I from just a practical point of view, I think students need to, yes, put their best work out there and make sure it's all current, have somebody look at it, have some, you know, take advice from people. You know, it may not be easy to hear that you're, you know, drawing that you love from 4 years ago no longer works, you know, just they have to, like, you know, and I, as teachers, you should be able to have the kind of relationship with them that they'll listen to you. When you tell them that is a weak drawing, they will then lift it off of their site. So there's some there's some just ground level things that I would recommend for students, but I think that's, they get caught in their head and start, you know, creating a storm, and that's not helping them or anything, or the animation industry, which is what we want to have happen. We want this art form to go forward and go to great places that we've not been before. So yeah, it can start with some practical things. Yeah, that would be my advice for them.
Yeah, Mark, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, I tell them when they start, you know, the industry starts here. Like, people get to know you. So number one, be respectful. You don't have to hold hands and sing songs, but you know, you gotta, we're all here for this reason. So it's being respectful, and your portfolio will get you an interview, but is what people think of you. So play nice, you know, be nice. And you know, that shows with how you are when you're sitting at your desk, and how focused you are and all that stuff. You know, we get a lot of students in animation that come out of high school and they haven't really been told, some of them haven't been told how to behave, you know, in an environment where you're with a lot of other artists. And so some of that is just teaching the skill set of, you know, getting ready for the industry. Is not just about the quality of your art. So there's that. And then again, as I mentioned before, it's the focus of guys. We don't know. Look, we can talk about the industry. There was nothing going on way back when I was finishing school. And now there's so many avenues that are looking for content. And like, if hey guys, you guys can put your stuff on the internet, like the website, and the whole world can see it. Again, not to be the old guy, we had to get a videotape and send it off, and someone had to put it in a machine and hit play, and you know, to watch our portfolio, you know. So again, like Tamara said, clean up your social networking, take those party photos off. I mean, you got to be careful what, you know, how you're selling yourself out there, but I just think the studios want to see something in your portfolio. And there's two avenues. Just do what you love and your best work is going to show. And another one is, if you want to work for Rick and Morty, then maybe focus a test that can look like Rick and Morty-ish style of timing, so that when they open your portfolio, that's your best shot. They go, wow, they sort of have what we do here. So again, there's an avenue a student can go into. It's just do completely your own thing, find your own voice. And then there's another avenue with some students. I want to be this. I want to do that, you know. And so it's sort of honoring both and helping them guide and giving them the feedback and the encouragement. So again, I'm always thinking, like, is to try to get them to be proud of their efforts. And part of that is their time management. Time management is the big one, right? Like, how many students come in, there's no instructor, and they come in at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's like, well, why don't you come in at 9? You've got your own film you're working on. Like, what are you doing? Like, anyways, I think it's a really positive future. It's just that they have to earn it. It's not for free. It is competitive, and that's good. Hey, Tom, at Disney, under my desk or under my door every Wednesday, there was a list of all the animators with, like on Hercules, there was 80 animators' names, and I was on that list. And oh, by the way, they laid off the bottom 10, gone. And so they decided on Tarzan, they would let us know, hey guys, at the end of Tarzan, we'll probably lay off the bottom people. Have a good time. You know, so, you know, but I say welcome that, because that's business. So it's a combination of learn the art, the love of this passion, which is such a great art form, And also you're a business person. As soon as you step into our classroom, you're your own business. You're your own business owner, and how you conduct yourself, how you focus, all that stuff. You can have bad days, as we all do. You can make mistakes, it's expected. But it's just guiding them. And so I just think, like, oh my God, there's so many avenues now that's out there. So I just think it's positive. It's just that, again, like we've mentioned, there's a lot of students, right? So there is that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that you know, when you were talking, I remember you know, you remember Joe Hadar.
Yep.
You know, Joe's a great animator, storyboard artist, and all, and did live action as well as animation. But he made a point one time. He said, "Film school is the last time you will be the only person responsible for the film."
That's
Because
true.
as soon as you leave, you're in teams, you know, you're in groups of people, you know, and you got to work well with people and everything. You can't, you know, it's not just on your own, and it's learning to collaborate. And sometimes you may have an idea, but it doesn't fit. So, you know, I know my students get upset because I learned an old industry term about storyboard called "kill your children." which is sometimes you have a really good idea, but it doesn't fit into the story right now. So you got to be unafraid to let it drop. You know, and just say, okay, it is a good idea, but it doesn't really work in this iteration of the story. So you know, get rid of it. You
Story
know,
is tough, man. You got to have thick skin. There's a
yeah.
lot of work that's on the in the garbage can, right? That's
Oh
not being
yeah. Oh
seen.
yeah. But yeah, you know, I mean, Shrek had like 26 rewrites, like the first one, and we just had so much stuff, was thrown out and all, and you just, like I said, it's funny. It's like old animators could watch their films and go, "Hey, that was good. That came out pretty nice." You know, I like that. You know, old story artists sit there and go, "I had a better idea there. I had a better idea there."
What I find interesting is that, I look at some artists like at Disney that were just so happy, just going in there, doing beautiful work. And they were never involved too much with the politics
Mm.
of what's going on. And they just sat there and drew, and they got into their own world. And it almost became like they were a positive, there was when you're picking your teams for the next show, hey, there's that person that's just into their art. And so there's sort of this combination of, don't get too involved with everything that's going on, and try to keep focus as that artist. And remember the joy that we used to have drawing as a teenager or as a kid growing up. It's like, we got to remember to go back to that when we're at our desks. And
Mm.
so anyways, it is a little complicated.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like like the professional attitude towards figure drawing. You know, it's like when you were a student and you were learning the figure, you could always tell the students because they're looking at their newsprint pads like this, like, well, the professionals, they go, "Hey, did you go to the Dodger game yesterday? Yeah, it was great. Oh yeah, no, no. I'm gonna go see the Knicks tonight. Yeah, like, they're just having a great time, you know. So, yeah. So, I want to throw it open now, so we're on the hour. If folks have some questions they'd like to ask our guests, or things they'd like to point out, you could be recognized. Okay, is anybody out there? Whoop. I know, so it's a room full of teachers, so I know people have opinions. Yeah, hey, Kelly, go ahead.
So I find that doing competitions, not just in your little assignment in your classroom or what have you, but doing those competitions, even if you make them up with, say that I just call, Tom and say, we're going to do some type of content, which make that stuff up. Or we have a contest where we have somebody from the industry, one of our buddies, who's going to judge it, not just our mom and dad or the science teacher right across the hall. No, somebody else. And so they look forward to it. So that helps them to, pick a production, get the production done, have a timeline and what have you. So I found that that's very successful in my teachings. By the way, I'm Kelly B. Cooper. I've been in the industry for 25 odd years. Most of you know who I am. But anyways, you get the idea. And I teach at a bunch of the colleges, but I teach full-time high school at the moment here in Playa del Rey in California.
Okay.
It's funny, Kelly, whenever someone from the industry comes in, the students like, ooh, someone from the industry. We can tell them the same thing, but when it's someone new telling them exactly the same thing, they're like, they're going to listen.
No, they say, oh, mom's always talking, but I'm like, mom's been in this industry for a while. But then I'll bring in just about anybody, somebody that I taught who is
Right.
now working in the industry, much younger than me, much less experienced, but still has some experience. And I go, ooh, that's so-and-so's, blah, blah, blah. I go, well, at least I'm reinforced from what I'm saying.
I know that when I went to the School of Visual Arts in the 70s, and one of my teachers was Harvey Kurtzman, the creator of Mad Magazine. And Harvey used to like to go to have a beer after class and all, and before he caught the last commuter train. And we talked to each other, and Harvey would say, my theory of teaching is got a 15-week class, bring in 5 guest speakers. He goes, pros love to talk.
That's
Students
good.
can't get
No,
enough
he's
of
right.
it.
He's right. The guest speakers really do help.
Yeah, yeah. And Harvey was so well connected. I mean, Harvey brought in Terry Gilliam. He brought in Ark Crum. It's like they all owed him favors. And I was like, God. So I don't know if I could do 5 and everything, but I at least like 2 or 3 and everything. That definitely helps.
You know what we should do is we should all rotate around and help each other out.
No, it's Mark's right. I was about to
Your
say the
class?
same thing. I was about to say we have all these people on this Zoom call alone. We could rotate each other around. We can actually have the same guest speaker at the same time, because it's Zoom with our classrooms. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm saying we do have a plethora of people that we can bring in, even if it's not physical.
Yeah.
It does shake up their month when
Yeah.
someone new has their point of view, because we do have a little different varied stories, don't we?
Yeah. I usually bring people in who specialize in things I don't specialize in because they have so many questions about like about storyboard or directing. So I'll bring in my favorite director friends.
Well, I do the same thing in film is when I teach film, not animation, but film itself. I'll bring in a cameraman, which I am not. I'll bring in a cinematographer that I am not. And I learned too, okay, so I'm being a little selfish because I want to know what they're doing too. I want to know what they've done. I want to know what they're doing. I want to know what they're doing next. So I'm bringing them in for me, and you guys get to, ask them questions too, yippee skippy, but it's really me being kind of selfish for my own education.
And it's funny too, when you're talking about when we were talking before about things being replaced or things being not really knowing where you fit in your first job or something. Sometimes it'll come in a completely different place. Like one of the things was when CG really hit big, Toy Story and Jurassic Park and all came out like in the mid 90s. One of the things everybody thought was going to die was stop motion. Everybody said that's it for stop mo, man. Forget. Even Ray Harryhausen was like, that's it. But the funny thing is, 30 years later and all, there's more stop motion being done now than in 1950. There's like 4 any one time there's like 4 feature films being done at the same time. So and I think Rick Farmelo is another animator we know. He works on a lot of traditional stuff, but then he would work, work for Leica once in a while, helping them with stuff. I think Tony Facilli was doing stuff at Leica as well, which are like 2D animators working on stop motion films.
Well, in Tom at DreamWorks on Flushed Away, they had the animators working in 3D, timing it to like it was stop motion.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let me get Kathy's up. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out the discussion about like student motivation and distress, because we're talking about stormy seas, but also like the students' mindsets and motivation. I think one of the things that's been very common that we're talking about here is the passion, having love for this art form and being willing to put in all the work it takes. But have you guys noticed things with students in distress more so than when we were college students? I know when we talked about how maybe there weren't a lot of jobs when we were college students, and we were motivated by just, the love for the art form. And as hard as it was, I'm seeing in my students certainly a good degree of distress. Is that something you all are seeing outside of the stormy seas that are surrounding us? Are you seeing other issues come up?
Mm.
What do you think? What do you think?
Carol, you want to go?
No, go ahead. I'll listen and then I'll.
No, 100%. It's a real positive thing that we're now more aware of mental health because it's out there. We had it back in our days. We didn't know we had. So, now it is so it's a positive. And, but I also see there's sort of a little sub story to that, is that there's students also sort of using it too often that maybe shouldn't be. So we have that middle ground, and it gets to a point where it's this gray area because you always have to respect it. And then so how do you handle it when there's assignments to be done, but then there's a mental health issue? And then what about the grading? And so it gets to the point where we're working with them, we give them extensions, and then we go, let's take off that whole assignment and don't worry about it. Let's take less pressure and take it off. And then, so basically they have so many assignments in a term. Well, now they have one less, and that's okay. Let's just look at your quality. And because basically they're just not experiencing or having to go through that assignment. And we're still trying to teach them the best we can. But when we're trying to fit everything in with mental health issues that is causing them not to show up to class, it gets too crowded, and once they start getting behind and trying to catch up, it only adds to it. So I found in our teaching, it's become a little differently now where we'll help them, support them, send them to the right people or the options they have. And that's the other thing is, like, for us is we're not doctors or therapists or whatever. So we just have to recognize it without going into too much details and allow them to learn from the people that they need to talk to regarding that. Because you can get sucked into, or our TAs, our teaching assistants on the front line can get sucked into their personal issues. And the last thing we want to do is have a TA trying to help out the mental health issue, all that. So this is what we've learned in the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I just see they're definitely aware of the competition, so they're anxious. I see a lot of anxiety. I'm not a full-time teacher like you are, Mark, so I can't comment on, like, you probably see a lot more of this than I do, but I'm lucky I have one class and it's 6 hours. So I make them stay in class for 6 hours. And that's been awesome because they have all gotten to know each other really well, and they actually like being there now. They don't want to leave anymore. Last week I tried to leave early. It was an hour early. I said, we can go. We worked really hard. And they all go, oh, yay. And then we ended up leaving an hour later. So I think it's helpful to just kind of have a lot of bonding in class, but again, I don't do it full time, but the bonding is helping so much, and just me getting to know them in the classroom and us working in class. It's like old school, the way we used to do things where we'd sit around and talk while we're working, and they're really enjoying that. So that seems to be helping with their anxiety, but I have very little experience, so I'm still learning myself.
Kelly, you want to say something?
Well, I found that in my intro classes, and I have 3 different types of classes I teach. So any of those classes, those intro classes, I don't set a deadline. I basically, if you get the work done, you get the points. And so they see everybody else in their class as they get them done. And I put everything up on the walls and they get to see it. They just feel like the pressure's not as huge. Now they get into intermediate and they get into advanced, there's deadlines. And even in the intermediate class, there are deadlines, but they're not as heavy and as hard as in what we call the honor class or the portfolio class, because there's an incremental stage. So the people that are passionate, we try to grab the passion first. We try to create the passion, try to grab the passion, and not give them the anxieties, because animation is so tedious already. And then we see if they migrate or, transition into the intermediate class. And then from there, that's set right in front. Okay, there's going to be some competitions, or there's going to be some deadlines. You're going to be this, that, or the other on this team. Find your team. And that's how we do that. And then of course, portfolio is basically, we get into groups and they become their own mini studios. And so they have to set deadlines. They have to do their own budgets and things like that. So it's been very successful for me, and I've been teaching 20 odd years, but
How
I've
many
seen a
years?
lot of,
How many
well,
years is your course? Just-
off and on, I've been teaching since I've been in the studios. But then when I was the head of one of the art colleges of the animation department, I found it was really successful. Now let's just talk about the post-COVID, cohort of students. There's going to be a lot more stress, a lot more instantaneous gratification, less iteration. And we kind of need to, break that down, because iterations is part of the process. And so that is a different step altogether. Again, the last 5 years, and not even leading up to it, but really the last 5 years, basically the COVID cohort. That's the ones that we as teachers need to, step up our game in the sense of, migrating them into the real process of not just grabbing the passion, but also introducing deadlines, introducing teamwork, introducing, not just, completion, but completion to a quality.
Well, I'll jump in with that. And like in the very beginning of the year, that the bouncing ball, Tom, like as most schools do, and the very second assignment is an in-between assignment, and they have to do an in-between, and literally almost every student fails that assignment, and we mark every single thing, like you're doing very, very precise production quality in-betweens of an in-between, from the angle of the eyes to the size of the nose, everything. And we mark down all the little things, and they actually can redo it and hand it back in, and then get 100%. And so they realize in that second assignment, oh my God, this is so picky. And this is what's needed. And even though we get them uncomfortable because they failed, that seems very dramatic, but then they realize this is a good thing that they're being shown how picky they need to be. So and again, guys, I'm just saying, because this is a 1-year course, so we're trying to figure it out, the best education where they feel good about it, and we're pushing them, but in a positive way. So we find, like you're saying, Kelly, is about quality as well, and how to introduce that, but in a positive way, and realizing this is just the learning curve. It's okay. And and then when they come back and they get 100%, they're like, oh, that is so. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out.
Let me get some other folks. Frank, you had your hand up for a while, and then John. So, oh, you're on mute, Frank.
I'm not anymore.
There we go.
This is an anecdote that I think draws back to the idea of what happens when we are suddenly confronted with a new technology that everybody goes, oh my God, we're done. Because this happened a lot of times. We've all talked about that. Years ago, I had dinner with Ray Harryhausen. I'm not dropping a name here. I'm going to tell the story about, and Jurassic Park had just come out like 10 days before. And I said to Ray, what do you think about Jurassic Park? Oh, says he, it's the greatest. It's so believable. I can't believe how realistic it is. Da, 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 da. And he went on about that. And I said, I know, Ray, but what do you think about Jurassic Park in light of stop motion? And this is what he said. He almost stood up in his chair. He said, I think all the stop motion animators in the world should find a high mountain and jump off. And what he meant by that was, it's over. And in fact, his kind of movie and that kind of approach was indeed over. From now on, live action pictures that use stop motion would not use stop motion, they'd use CG, and they composite that way and so forth. But what he was thrilled about, because I was friendly with him for another 20 years till he passed, what he was thrilled about was it wasn't the end of stop motion. It was actually a rebirth of stop motion with Leica and Aardman and individual studios and so forth. He was really, really, really thrilled about that. He was thrilled that he was wrong in a way. And I thought that was something that maybe this lesson and what's going to happen with AI and all those kind of things, maybe we'll be thrilled about that too in a few years.
Yeah. Okay, let me get to John Slastry. John?
Hi. Okay, well, what I was going to say is, now I'm not an educator the way you are. I've been putting up my videos for the last 6 years on my YouTube channel, where I do all the basics of animation, you know, the old school way, basically. And but I try to say, enjoy the process, because if you enjoy the process, then it's a place, you know, animation is a place that you go to for a positive experience, and you don't start feeling stressed. Don't worry about the stress. You're enjoying the process. You're creating something new. And to me, you know, teaching the older, you know, the basics, it's like teaching music. It's kind of like no matter what tool you're using, having that, understanding those basics of motion and why something moves in the timing that it does. You are the some, you can have some way of expressing yourself. And pickiness is the same way a musician will take one note, and the way he fingers that note for whatever period of time is the same way that drawing has to be a certain way. Otherwise, it's ruining the whole, you know, the whole experience. So I try to say that in my videos. School-wise, School of Hard Knocks. I know Tom since he was in high school. School of Visual Arts, 6 weeks, and that was it. It was a New York Institute of Technology, Tubby the Tuba, working with Mighty Terrace, you know, all of the old Popeye and Mighty Mouse animators. That's where I learned how to put together exposure sheets and timing, and then it was Raggedy Ann and Andy after that, and then it was on to Nelvana. So I put all that stuff, but you know, I think the only way to have people and you know, students be distressed, how to work with that distress is to say, okay, is this something, if this is your passion, go into it, use it as a way to invigorate yourself. You know, if you're there to learn, if you're looking at to be a mechanic, there's cheaper ways to make what you want to do. If you're going it as an artist, then you're going to try and that's what you're presenting yourself as a valuable person, as part of a team somewhere else. So that's what I was saying.
Okay. All right, so we got to start wrapping up soon. So from our guests and everything, do you have any like parting thoughts or any advice for people teaching which would the future animation student, future animators of the world?
I would say thank you very much for doing it, for being there on the front lines of it all. And you know, these are the people, we'll all work with each other, you know, and we'll see each other through our whole lives. So I'm sure I'll meet all of you in person at some point. And I'm really grateful for, and I think it was said, maybe Mark, you said it, that yeah, the people that you meet in school are going to be your core group, you know, and I think also Todd mentioned too, you know, to help these kids understand finances a little bit is helpful too. And it's great for them to be artistic, but it's also good for them to know the business side of it. And it's not a scary place. It's actually, you know, just life. And they're going to need to know how to use money. They also need to know that if they are having mental health issues, that school can go away for a moment and then come back, you know, they can breathe, you know, with their education. Education really is a lifelong process. So if they can be able to think of themselves as that, it's not just so dense and concentrated into one 4-year period when you're in your 20s, you know, they can relax into the idea that they have a whole life to be learning things. So yeah, that would be my parting advice.
Yeah, it's funny that I like to shock my students every once in a while. by saying, look around the room. You're going to grow old with these people. Your husbands and wives will come and go. These are the people you get to know for the rest of your life. So, because
Yeah.
like John was saying, it's like, I'm old friends with Eric Goldberg, and Eric and I met 50 years ago at Teletactics in New York. We worked together in New York. We worked together in London. We worked together in Hollywood. We worked together at Disney. We worked together at Warner Brothers. I got him a job teaching at USC for a while. It's like we just keep running into the same people all the time. So that's which could Carol, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, I love these messages. I'm learning some things I'm going to take to my classroom. But I just wanted to say, as someone who kind of fell into animation from a different career completely, I always remind students that, you can think outside the box. It's not, you don't have to, like, if storyboard isn't fitting what you do and what you love to do, you can always veer and do different things. And as an artist, we can do anything, really. There are a million careers. So, you can be a graphic designer and an animator and an illustrator and a fine artist like me, or you can be, you can do so many different things. So if they ever feel stuck, it's like reaching in and finding what they really love to do, because it may lead them to something completely different that they weren't planning.
Mark, you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, there's no waste of time with what we're teaching them as far as the arts, right? Like, it all applies. So I just think the one thing for me when I think about it as an instructor is that not every student's going to get in the industry. It's just a reality. We have a lot of students and they all love it. And usually in the first few weeks, you realize the ones that are struggling, and they realize how hard it is as far as the work that you have to put into this. And so it doesn't change anything. We're still teaching everyone exactly the same way. We're giving them that education, whether they can thrive with it and get in the industry or they don't. And that's for us to, I feel, as instructors, feeling proud of what we're offering them. It's the same all around, but it's just the industry. I remember on Shrek 2, I know I drop another names. I was fortunate to work with a lot of people. James Baxter was telling me, with Katzenberg at DreamWorks, it's like they give you free food, they give you gifts, but when they need you to do work, they want excellent work done. And so you have to, like he said, you have to earn. It's like a playground. It's like his sandbox. He called it Jeffrey's sandbox. He's sort of in charge of it. You may not agree with everything, but it's like when he's asking you to get your work done, they want excellent work. So you have to come to the table with that. So that's sort of our goal, is to have these students learn this art of animation. And that's what we're doing here, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 4 year courses. Like, we're going to give them the best experience. Just realize they have to earn their spot in it. They're going to have to get uncomfortable because it's not easy, and that's okay that it's not easy. It does get easier, as we know, but still, I try to keep that seriousness about it as well as the joy of the art. It's that combination, right? So, and they seem to like that.
Yeah, we have a comment from Carson Keeley. Carson, do you want to take yourself off mute?
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for hosting this and stuff. A lot of names in here that I recognize: Mike Gasaway, Jimmy Neutron, and a few others back at Barnyard. And also my teacher Frank Gladstone too. How you doing, Frank? Honestly, your class was personally my favorite class that I took at CSU LB. Also, Carol, Carol, you're working. You're a teacher at CSU LB.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carol. Yeah, Carol. Go Beach. Did you last year around this time, like at December, there was like a play of The Simpsons or something at CSU LB. Did you ever attend that or see that?
No, I didn't even hear about that.
It was really good. It was like called like Mr. Burns' Electric Bugaloo or something like that. It was really good. I just kind of wanted to comment and say that, like, I don't know, just listening to you guys and like hearing about like a lot of the experiences. Like, well, back in my day, I remember in 1981 that it was way worse than this. And it's like it's just kind of nice to hear that, and I don't mean that in like a disrespectful way or anything like that. Like I find this type of stuff and like learning about history and like the experience from other animators just like very like I love that type of stuff, and I can't get enough of that type of stuff. But I don't know, I just kind of wanted to say thank you guys for this, and wanted to just say, hey, I'm a fan, and I like hearing what you guys like have to say and stuff, and I hope I hear more of your advice.
Great. Okay, good. Yeah, I think a thing I've noticed over the years is that every society or every group, like when you're like 18, 19 or something, formative, thinks of themselves as apocalyptic, meaning like all of recorded history led up to this point. So like Hitler was defeated and the American Revolution was won and all, so we could sit here and talk. And you think you figure out after a while, uh, society goes on. Like it'll keep going. There'll be other upturns, there'll be other downturns. It'll keep rolling, and you find where you fit in the roller coaster, and that's just how it works out. I mean, I didn't decide I was going to be a professor when I just wanted to be an animator, and then it just, my career path led me, to USC eventually. So. Anyway, I've got to wrap it up because we're at 90 minutes. So I want to thank our guests. You guys did wonderful stuff. Thank you so much. And everything, let's give you a big hand. So
Thank you.
yeah. I once did I once was at a session for people who were hearing impaired, and what they used to do for applause was that when people would applaud, films done by deaf filmmakers, they go like this.
Jazz hands.
Yeah, that's the version of applause. So anyway, but thank you, everybody. Kathy, did you want to jump in for one last thing?
Yes, one last thing. I'm going to put another link in the chat. This is from mental health first aid training. This is something I did through Cal State Fullerton, and it was really great. So since we were also talking about distress issues, I'm just going to throw that in the chat. And thank you so much. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody. This has been so wonderful. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, can I just ask one question? Maybe in the future, we have a discussion about grading animation students and how we do it.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Yeah. Duly noted, my friend. So, okay. Well, everybody have a great rest of your day. If you're daytime, nighttime, I noticed that the people in Germany, it's nighttime, and some of the other people, it's morning. So everybody have a great rest of the day, whenever it is. So, and and keep on teaching.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Everybody.
Thank you.